Welcome to my new ASMR channel, Whispered Wikipedia, where I will whisper Wikipedia articles on a number of interesting or historical or scientific articles. If you want, you can suggest another article on Wikipedia for me to read in the comments section of this video. Today I'm going to start by reading the article about the Sassanid Empire, which was one of the ancient Persian empires. First, I'll read some basic facts and statistics about the empire from the info box. The Sassanid Empire, also called Iran Shah, was from 224 to 651 AD, a major empire with a land area of roughly 6.6 million square kilometers, or 2.5 million square miles at its peak. It reached its greatest extent during the Byzantine-Sasanian War of 602. Its capital was Ctesiphon, one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, which essentially later became Baghdad. Its languages were officially Middle Persian, Greek and Parthian, which were used for some administration, Middle Aramaic, which served as a lingua franca. Its religions included Zoroastrianism, the official religion, Christianity, Manichaeism, Judaism, Mandaism, paganism, Mithraism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. Its government was a feudal monarchy. Its first ruler was Ardashir I, and its last was Yazdegerd III. During late antiquity, essentially the empire reigned. It was preceded by the Parthian Empire, and succeeded by the Islamic Caliphate. So I'll begin reading the main text of the article. The Sassanid Empire, also known as the Sassanid, or Neo-Persian Empire, known to its inhabitants as Iran Shah in Middle Persian language, was the last Iranian empire before the rise of Islam, ruled by and named after the Sasanian dynasty from 224 to 651. The Sasanian Empire, which succeeded the Parthian Empire, was recognized as one of the leading world powers, alongside its neighboring arch-rival, the Roman Byzantine Empire, for a period of more than 400 years. The Sasanian Empire was founded by Ardashir I after the fall of the Parthian Empire and the defeat of the last Arsacid king, Artabanus V. At its greatest extent, the Sasanian Empire encompassed all of today's Iran, Iraq, Eastern Arabia, the Levant, the Caucasus, Egypt, large parts of Turkey, much of Central Asia, Yemen, and Pakistan. The Sasanian Empire during late antiquity is considered to have been one of Iran's most important and influential historical periods, and constituted the last great Iranian empire before the Muslim conquest and the adoption of Islam. In many ways, the Sasanian period witnessed the peak of ancient Iranian civilization. Persia influenced Roman culture considerably during the Sasanian period. The Sasanians' cultural influence extended far beyond the empire's territorial borders, reaching as far as Western Europe, Africa, China, and India. It played a prominent role in the formation of both European and Asian medieval art. Much of what later became known as Islamic culture in art, architecture, music, and other subject matter was transferred from the Sasanians throughout the Muslim world. The Sassanids established an empire roughly within the frontiers achieved by the Parthian Arsacids, with the capital at Ctesiphon. The Parthians were the previous empire that ruled the region, modern-day Iran. They were essentially a decentralized feudal empire. The Sassanids were much more of a centralized government. In administering this empire, Sassanid rulers took the title of Shah-an-Shah, or King of Kings, became the central overlords, and also assumed guardianship of the sacred fire, the symbol of the national religion, Zoroastrianism. This symbol is explicit on Sassanid coins, where the reigning monarch, with his crown and regalia of office, appears on the obverse, backed by the sacred fire, the symbol of Zoroastrianism, on the coin's reverse. Sassanid queens had the title of Queen of Queens. On a smaller scale, the territory might also be ruled by a number of petty rulers from a noble family, overseen directly by Shah-an-Shah, hence the title King of Kings. The districts of the provinces were ruled by a Shahrab and a Maubed, or chief priest. The Maubed's job was to deal with legal things like estate rights. Sassanid rule was characterized by considerable centralization, ambitious urban planning, agricultural development, and technological improvements. Below the king, a powerful bureaucracy carried out much of the affairs of government. The head of the bureaucracy was the vizier or prime minister, infrastructure facilitated by the empire, the prosperity of the period has been compared to the Pax Romana of the Roman Empire. The Sassanid rulers always considered their ministers' advice. A Muslim historian, Masudi, praised the excellent administration of the Sassanid kings, their well-ordered policy, their care for their subjects, and the prosperity of their domains. In normal times, the monarchical office was hereditary, but might be transferred by the king to a younger son. In 2 instances, the supreme power was held by queens. When no direct heir was available, the nobles chose a ruler, but their choice was restricted to members of the royal family, the dynasty. The Sassanid nobility was a mixture of old Parthian clans, Persian aristocratic families, and noble families from subject territories. Culturally, the Sassanids implemented a system of social stratification. This system was supported by Zoroastrianism, which was established as the state religion. Other religions appear to have been largely tolerated, although this claim has been debated. Sassanid emperors consciously sought to resuscitate Persian traditions and to obliterate Greek cultural influence. Sasanian military. The active army of the Sassanid Empire originated from Ardashir I, the first Shah, king of kings, or emperor of the empire. Ardashir restored the Achaemenid military organizations, retained the Parthian cavalry model, and employed new types of armor and siege warfare technologies. The relationship between priests and warriors was important because the concept of Iran Shah had been revived by the priests. Without this relationship, the Sassanid Empire would not have survived in its beginning stages. Because of the relationship between the warriors and the priests, religion and state were considered inseparable in the Zoroastrian religion. However, it is this same relationship that caused the weakening of the empire, when each group tried to impose their power onto the other. Disagreements between the priests and the warriors led to fragmentation within the empire, which led to its downfall. The Pagan formed the bulk of the Sassanid infantry and were often recruited from the peasant population. Each unit was headed by an officer, the command of the infantry, and their main task was to guard the baggage train, serve as pages to a higher rank, storm fortification walls, undertake entrenchment projects, and excavate mines. So actually more of like a construction crew than a modern infantry. Those serving in the infantry were fitted with shields and lances. They are reported as having fought with weapons such as daggers, swords, and javelins, and reputed to have been recognized by Romans for their skills and hardiness in close-quarter combat. The Sassanid navy Bashir I conquered the Arab side of the Persian Gulf. Because controlling the Persian Gulf was an economic necessity, the Sassanid navy worked to keep it safe from piracy, prevent Roman encroachment, and keep the Arab tribes from getting hostile. However, it is believed by many historians that the naval force could not have been a strong one, as the men serving in the navy were those who were confined in prisons. The Sassanids had relations with many neighboring regimes. There was frequent warfare with the Romans and, to a lesser extent, other foreign nations. The Sassanids, like the Parthians, were in constant hostility with the Roman Empire. They were recognized as one of the leading world powers alongside its neighboring arch-rival, the Roman Byzantine Empire, for a period of more than 400 years. Following the Roman Empire's division in 395, the Eastern Roman Empire, with its capital at Constantinople, continued as Persia's principal western enemy and main enemy in general. Hostilities between the two empires became more frequent. The last of the many and frequent wars with the Byzantines, the climactic Byzantine-Sasanian War of 602 to 628, almost a 30-year war. Wow. Which included the siege of the Byzantine capital Constantinople, ended with both rivaling sides having drastically exhausted their human and material resources. Furthermore, social conflict within the empire had considerably weakened it even further. Thus, they were vulnerable to the sudden emergence of Islamic caliphates, whose forces invaded both empires only a few years after the war. The Muslim forces swiftly conquered the entire Sassanid Empire and deprived the Byzantines of territories in the Near East and North Africa. Over the following centuries, half of the Byzantine lands and the entire Sassanid Empire came under Muslim rule. In general, over the span of the centuries, Sassanid territory abutted that of the large and stable Roman state, but to the east, its nearest neighbors were the Kushan Empire and nomadic tribes such as the White Huns. The construction of fortifications, such as the Tus Citadel or the city of Nishapur, which later became a center of learning and trade, also assisted in defending the eastern provinces from attack. The Persians also had a war with Aksum, which was the Ethiopian kingdom. In 522, the Aksumites led an attack on the dominant Himyarites of southern Arabia. The local Arab leader appealed to the Sassanids for aid, while the Aksumites subsequently turned towards the Byzantines for help. So this was basically a proxy war. Interesting. The Aksumites sent another force across the Red Sea, and this time successfully killed the Arab leader and replaced him with an Aksumite man to be king of the region. So in 531, Justinian suggested that the Aksumites of Yemen should cut out the Persians from Indian trade by maritime trade with the Indians. After being denied by Justinian, Ma'ad Karib, who was one of the sons of an Aksumite general, sought help from the Shah of the Persians, who sent a small fleet and army to depose the new king of Yemen. Justinian, therefore, was ultimately responsible for Sassanid maritime presence in Yemen. But the Sassanids were able to achieve military dominance in the region and sent in their army as well. So it was like a Vietnam War type scenario where the two superpowers had a proxy war in Yemen, but the Sassanids benefited from it because they got trade routes and ports. The Sassanid Empire also carried out active foreign relations with China, and ambassadors from Persia frequently traveled to China. That's a long distance. Some Chinese documents report on 13 Sassanid embassies in China. Commercially, land and sea trade with China was important to both the Sassanid and Chinese empires. Large numbers of Sassanid coins have been found in southern China, confirming maritime trade. So, let's talk about the society of the Sassanids. In contrast to Parthian society, the Sassanids renewed emphasis on a centralized and charismatic government. So the Parthian Empire before it wasn't really much of an empire. It was pretty feudal and decentralized, and the Sassanids were more nationalistic. They had more of a single national and social and cultural identity, and their administration was more centralized and had more power. And there was more trade as well. In Sassanid theory, the ideal society could maintain stability and justice, and the necessary instrument for this was a strong monarch. So the Sassanids aimed to be an urban empire, which they were quite successful at. During the late Sassanid period, Mesopotamia had the highest population density in the entire medieval world, including China. This can be credited to, among other things, the Sassanids founding and refounding a number of cities, which is talked about in the surviving Middle Persian text, the provincial capitals of Iran. Ardashir I himself built and rebuilt many cities, which he named after himself. He was the first leader of the empire. During the Sassanid period, many cities with the name Iran, Quara, were established. This is because they wanted to revive the Avesta ideology. Many of these cities, both new and old, were populated not only by native ethnic groups, such as the Iranians or Syrians, but also by Roman prisoners of war, such as Goths, Slavs, Latins, and others. Many of these prisoners were experienced workers who were used to build things such as cities, bridges, and dams. This allowed the Sassanids to become familiar with Roman technology. The impact these foreigners made on the economy was very important, but many of them were Christians, and they helped accelerate the spread of the Christian religion into the empire. class divisions. Their society was immensely complex, with separate systems of social organization governing numerous different groups within the empire. Historians believe society comprised 4 social classes: priests, warriors, artisans, and commoners. At the center of the Sassanid caste system, the Shah ruled over all the nobles. The royal princes, petty rulers, great landlords, and priests together constituted a privileged stratum and were identified as Uzurgan. This social system was fairly rigid. The Sassanid caste system outlived the empire, continuing in the early Islamic period. The Shah himself was the head of the Sassanid Empire. His health and welfare was always important, and the phrase, "May you be immortal," was used to reply to him. By looking on the Sassanid coins, which appeared from the 6th century and afterwards, a moon and sun is noticeable, suggesting the king was at the center of the world and the sun and moon revolved around him, an old Mesopotamian idea. When the king went to the publicity, he was hidden behind a curtain and had some of his men in front of him, whose duty was to keep the masses away from the king and to keep his way clear. There were guards enlisted from the royal families who were in charge of the king's safety and controlled the entrance to his great palace, and in some cases served as royal executioners. In general, mass slavery was never practiced by the Persians, and in many cases the situation and lives of semi-slaves or prisoners of war were in fact better than those of the commoner. The term slave was also used on people who were in debt and had to use some of their time to serve in a fire temple, a Zoroastrian temple. The most common slaves were not agricultural but were household servants who worked in private estates and fire temples. Usage of a woman slave in a home was common, and her master had outright control over her and could even produce children with her if he wanted to. Some slaves received wages and were able to have their own families, whether female or male. Harming a slave was a crime, and not even the king himself, the Shah, was allowed to do this. The master of a slave was allowed to free the person when he wanted to, which, no matter what faith the slave believed in, was considered a good deed.